Hi there, this is Universal Traveler. I've been doing a radio show weekly on a live radio station, Kootenai Co-op Radio, for 17 years, since 1999 that is. And I'm now going to YouTube for the show. So the show is called Universal Traveler, and I'm your Universal Travel Agent, Spectral Star Wizard. Basically, on this show, we look at the Astro-Climate and tune into some remedies and things that we can apply in the Astro-Climate. Now, what is Astro-Climate? Astro-Climate basically is the cycles and dynamics of natural movements that happen on macro levels, solar systemic and galactic. So basically it's the weather that the Earth is experiencing, and we of course are part of the biosphere of the Earth and therefore are also soaking in these vibratory processes and dynamics that again are very natural, very orderly, and very cyclic. So we will see emphasis and de-emphasis of different parts of the greater whole, just like cycles or seasons, we might say. Seasons are a good example of natural cycles. We will see multiple forms of seasons. So basically we're looking at the vibrational processes on a macro field level in order to apply it in our lives. So it's very important while we're looking at collective dynamics to recognize and discern where we are most serving, what is most appropriate for us as individuals within these collective dynamics that we're all a part of. So discerning for ourselves, and largely it boils down to timing. We're synchronizing with natural cycles. We're not changing what we're doing per se. We're aligning what we're doing with the momentum of natural cycles, because the energy of natural cycles is beyond measure. We can have phenomenal wind at our back or be pushing against phenomenal wind, for example. So it's extremely important to be aware of these things, absolutely beyond description in my experience. So I always like to start out the show by pointing out that it's very good to tune into our higher consciousness, basically taking some deep belly breaths and focusing your attention or your point of focus of consciousness in the heart. This is where we are balanced. We're accessing the vertical and the horizontal. I like to say we're accessing the axis. We're tuning into our higher consciousness. We're tuning into the unified field of awareness. We're going beyond our organic brain processing unit and tuning into our spiritual center that simply downloads information, we might say, from the universal field of awareness. And we can then go about applying these things as our superconscious informs our conscious mind, again, of timing and individual alignments. So being as tuned into our higher consciousness as possible is extremely important at all times, but certainly for comprehending the show. And it's very important also to recognize that if you ever feel like you don't understand something, it's okay. You're not expected to. A lot of things the superconscious understands, and the conscious mind will be informed of what it needs to know as these processes unfurl or unfold. So basically I like to start out by looking at the 9-dimensional synchronometry. This is where we're looking at galactic cycles and the kind of the overview of the solar systemic dynamics, which we'll look at after, which gives us more of the details of how these things are playing out uniquely at this time and on the Earth. So we're looking at galactic cycles, then we'll look at solar systemic, terrestrial, earthly experiences of those galactic cycles. Basically, the galactic cycles are pulses that the entire galaxy experiences, pulsed out from the center of our galaxy. They play out uniquely in the terrestrial area of each star or solar system. So we'll be looking at specifically hours after. The two main counts that we look at are the dream spell and the traditional count. In the dream spell count, we have the galactic monkey, 11-8, and this is in the seed cycle. The galactic monkey is about harmonizing for personal experience and personal performance to express our magical individuality. And the seed cycle, which is a 13-day process, again of galactic nature, is about seeding awareness and targeting and ripening information. So we tune into the information and then we go about applying it. It's kind of like a seed has all of the information that it needs genetically, and then it's largely about gardening, landscaping, giving that potential everything it needs, or as much that we can as possible in the present conditions. So targeting awareness and ripening fruition of potential. One of the most important wave cycles, by the way, Dr. Jose Arguelles said that he was a master of 9-dimensional synchronometry or galactic cosmology, otherwise commonly known as the Mayan calendar and the cycles that it's about, which are galactic in nature. They're navigated on Earth for Earth, but they are measuring galactic cycles, which is what we're doing here on the show. He was saying that almost all the most important things that came to him intuitively, etc., came during the seed cycle, which is totally affirmative of what the seed cycle is about. It's about downloading information, natural processes, which is what we're tuning into, which is our fullest potential. We're tuning into energetic dynamics on macro field levels. The momentum and power is inconceivable. So again, when the wind is at our back, the outcomes are positively maximized. In stark contrast, and most things are somewhere in between. Accordingly, we'd be facing the wind, pushing against the wind, and experiencing stress and troubles. So we're maximizing our awareness in order to maximize our potential. What is the weather on an astro-cosmological level? Okay, so the traditional count cycle of 9-dimensional synchronometry, which is again more definition there, we're looking at synchronizing with the geometry of 9 octaves or dimensions of frequencies. And these are the frequencies of causality. The third octave or density is the third dimension. We're looking at the 9 dimensions inclusive of the third dimension. So we're looking at 9 octaves of frequencies of causality and applying it in the third dimension. Our intuitive faculties are tuned into the fourth density and beyond, and basically what is called the sixth senses. The 5 senses are basically tuned to the frequencies of the third dimension. Our intuitive faculties, or higher consciousness, are fourth octave and beyond, so the sixth senses. Ultimately, the sixth senses access unlimited frequencies, vibrations. It's a matter of how well we tune in and how well we interpret what we're intuiting. So in the traditional count, we have just started a new cycle, the Tone 1 Chikchan, which means in English Dream Spell translation is the magnetic serpent. And this cycle is about tuning into Earth Kundalini and Cosmic Kundalini. So we're working with life force, understanding the purpose of energy and life force, what is the most beneficial expressions of life force, because that is where we will be in as much harmony with nature as possible. Again, we're tuning into things in their ideal. Sometimes I will mention things in their worst case scenario, so that we have a full spectrum, full range, understanding as much as possible the entire playing field. Quite often things will express somewhere in between the extremes. The extremes just simply point out the entire field. The 9-dimensional frequencies are most of the entire field. It's what's most applicable here on Earth. And again, what is the information beyond what we might immediately consciously understand is actually, it's very important for a lot of it that we don't think we understand it, because we could limit it. So it's very important to be very open-minded and allow your higher consciousness to process the information and again inform the conscious mind in time-space as events unfurl in order to apply it in practical ways. So tuning into life force and working with life force. Now we're going to look at the solar systemic astrology. Now this is where we look at what I like to call the ACER, the Astro-Cosmologically Based Evolutionary Weather Report for the Times. Now we're looking at how these galactic pulses that envelop through the entire galaxy, pulsed from the core of our galaxy, ultimately stemming from the source of all the divs, how it's unfolding in our solar system and on the Earth for application here on Earth as human beings, spiritual beings who are experiencing the physical world of Earth through our organic spacesuits. And yeah, good reminder there is that the mind is an organic processing unit. Consciousness itself is way beyond the mind's capabilities. The mind is a third-dimensional construct, as is the body. Consciousness is a multi-dimensional construct beyond construction. It's not limited by form, time, or space. The mental processes are accordingly due to the processes of the mind. This is why it's so important to recognize that we have a super consciousness and unity consciousness that's tuned to all things everywhere, all information. And a conscious mind is what we're accessing, the processes and the ability to process things at certain rates, which is ruled by the planet Mercury, which I'll be speaking about in a few moments. So I'm going to look at the key processes that are going on. I like to look at these things on a weekly level. I'll look at bigger picture. Without the big picture, nothing else will make sense. The shorter term weekly reports are about how it is unfolding now. What's the most appropriate things we can do now in the bigger picture. So we've had some pretty powerful dynamics, and that's exactly why this show has moved from radio, weekly radio, Astro-Climate Reports, etc., to YouTube. We just had a new moon, and in the late degrees of Libra. And it was only 4 minutes, 4 solar arc minutes, from exactly opposite to the planet Uranus, which is in Aries. And this is where the frequencies are extremely high. Energetic frequencies are extremely high. There's a lot of openings, a lot more potential, a lot of unexpected change. Sometimes it's not unexpected. A lot of change is more accurate. And it's because when the frequency is higher, things move more easily. Things that are outmoded fall away more easily. Things that are more appropriate integrate more easily. Things things move more easily in general. On the one hand, and again I'm going to look at some extreme for contrasting, for the contrast, to understand the contrast and to recognize what point do we want to be in between. What is the harmonic ratio, beneficial combinations with these extreme contrasts. On the high side, we integrate more positive things. Change is really positive, sometimes more immediately. On the far other end of the spectrum, accidents, problems, things change more easily. So things shift more easily. Sometimes that is something that is usually fairly predictable, becomes less predictable, and therefore an accident or something could happen. In natural cycles, everything that nature or natural dynamics are doing is for life to expand and grow, and it's always in a beneficial modality. The intent is to grow and expand and improve. That doesn't mean that everything always goes smoothly or nicely, but in the long run it does. And our interpretation of it can be extremely subjective. So it's very important to recognize that how things look at any particular time could be a short-term thing, or inaccurate. We haven't seen the actual outcome of what that dynamic is bringing. And this is all, these are all the dynamics of the Aquarius-Uranus new moon. So the new moon is almost precisely opposite to the planet Uranus, which is ruled by Aquarius. Breakthroughs, quickenings, paradigm shifts. Now the reason this is more important than usual, and one of the strongest dynamics I've ever seen, is largely we are in the cusp of the age of Aquarius, which is just over 2,000 years long. We just entered into the cusp, or the shift over, in the last couple of 100 years. It takes a very long time for these shifts to happen when the cycles are over 2,000 years long. Also, we're right on the cusp of the sun going into Scorpio at this time. I'm recording this on the 21st of October 2017, by the way. And we're looking at some of the main dynamics that happened last week and the dynamics that are coming this week. What is most appropriate and applicable and important ultimately. That new moon really is the topper, and that's why we're starting with that one. Uranus brings in those new seeds. They are new potentials. They're things that are ripe to start doing now. We get the seed, we have to plant it, we have to nurture it, we have to garden, we have to steward. We have to target, we have to plan, we have to organize. We basically make the conditions as appropriate as possible. In the present conditions, we adjust the present conditions, and the present conditions accordingly are already adjusted naturally to suit these dynamics. So, big change, big events, a lot of big awakenings. Because Mercury and Jupiter are also aligned, they're in the same place in early Scorpio, and so close to the new moon, they're all considered conjunct or within 10 degrees of each other, right on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio. And again, the new moon being precisely opposite Uranus, Mercury and Jupiter are aligned just to the side of the sun and the new moon. So they're also opposite to Uranus, but not as precisely as the sun being opposite. 4 minutes of arc is a micro hair. We have 360 degrees, then we have 60 minutes in every degree. At 4 minutes is a micro hair of distance. It's I've never seen a closer new moon alignment with another planet ever. So we have extremely high frequency potential. Uranus and Aquarius rule electricity and advances, awakenings, quickenings. The age of Aquarius is the great quickening. Leo on the other side is the other great quickening. They are the ages of light, when frequencies are the highest in our galactic orbit. And solar system cycles. We're looking at solar cycles beyond the Earth and inclusive of the Earth when we're talking about great cycles. Most of what I'll be looking at is things from the Earth, but they're from the Earth in the sun's cycles, in the sun's orbit, in the galactic processes. So big quickenings, big awakenings, big alignments, big shifts. What is outmoded becomes more obvious. What is more appropriate starts to come in. People will have epiphanies, realizations, sudden insights into better ways of doing things, and all the way through the spectrum to realizations of how destructive or problematic certain things are. The Me Too movement is happening now. It's an absolutely perfect example of massive awakenings into things that weren't seen or understood. We have Mercury aligned with Jupiter in Scorpio. Mercury is the dominant frequencies that rule the organic processing unit called the mind. How we communicate, how we process information, our understanding generally. Jupiter is the great expander, the guru, the wisdom, the center, the central planet of our solar system. The sun is the center, overall, the heart. Jupiter is the central planet of all the planets. So expansion, positivity, beneficial. I like to call Jupiter the Santa Claus of the solar system. Unlimited, omnipotential, and ultimately about expansion, overall well-being, generosity, abundance. So Mercury being aligned with Jupiter, we have a very, very beneficial and optimistic way of looking at things, more than usual, as the expansion of our awareness is into realms of unlimited potential, which ultimately is what energy is. It can be in a form that's fairly static or very moving or very stable, any point between, and then we can have energetic dynamics that are, well, usually somewhere in between. So information and awareness to expand our perception, and when we expand our perception, when we open our mind, we can see what we weren't seeing before. We can be more confident to go about applying things. And Scorpio as the great transformer. It is the energetic dynamic in the sphere, energetic holosphere, the inverted spherical mirror ball holographic universe, holospheric. That cycle or process of transformations. We go through initiations, starting with Aries, and we move through the cycle. Libra is halfway through the cycle. The mirror reflects cause and effect. The cause is the initiation, Aries. The reflection, the effect is Libra. And Scorpio is about purification and transformation. So it says what worked, what didn't work, all points in between, what stays and what goes. So purification, transformation, realignment, shedding our old skin for new skin. So a lot of things that were in our way or blocking or hampering or negative come to the surface to be removed. That's great. I like to call Scorpio the spiritual bleach. And that Mercury-Jupiter conjunction in early Scorpio shows the awakenings and information sharing of things that were hidden. Again, the Me Too movement really nails it. People all coming out. It's not that we haven't heard about these things, certainly, but what we have is a movement of people all stating, yes, me, so that we have a list of how many people, what kind of percentage of people, and basically awakenings into how deep it really goes. Certainly getting a lot deeper. I'm sure it goes deeper than anyone could ever imagine, unfortunately. But what is fortunate about this is that change comes with awakenings, with awareness, with acceptance. We can move through things more easily when we acknowledge it, we accept it. Then we can forgive or apologize and clear the energy. Then we can factor that with new potential. When we have compassion and empathy, we can clear things completely. I like to call this formula, which I downloaded in a meditation about 20 years ago or so, 15 years ago. The 4 A's, which is a universal clearing formula. We acknowledge things. First step, acknowledge it. We accept it. We apologize and forgive accordingly, depending. And we factor it with compassion and empathy. And we clear the energy accordingly. Sometimes we need to do layers, run through the onion layers as they come up. We have more awareness, we have more acknowledgement, we have more acceptance, we have more things to be compassionate and have empathy with, and ultimately increase our skills of empathy and compassion and clear those dynamics. A lot of things that are very traumatic or deep-rooted can be stored cellularly. Sometimes people aren't even conscious of them. There are collective ones, there are personal ones, there are family ones, there are race ones, there are all kinds of different levels. We could have our own personal, only happen to us type things. So what we're doing with this work, and we're not just using the words are just describing the process that we're applying, which will actually clear us when done deeply enough on a cellular level and on a spiritual level. That means that we're transforming the vibration of causality. That's not just saying, oh, it's okay. It's actually transforming the energy on a super conscious level. When we just say something, or we only clear something mentally, for example, accordingly, we'll only clear it on that level. We might say that we think something, and we might apologize on a level of words, and really it's the feeling and the actual meaning and the spiritual depth that will actually cause the clearing. And that's where people say, or generally sense, if they're intuiting accurately enough, what we actually mean beyond the words. This all relating to the Mercury, Jupiter, Uranus, new moon opposition, all 4 Mercury, Jupiter, Sun and Moon opposite to Uranus, massive awakenings and communication of these awakenings. This basically boils down to a template of natural societal structures that is so much more serving than dysfunctional structures. Like to say the dog-eat-dog world or mindset has bitten its own tail off, and basically it's back to dog serving dog, by analogy, by example, by metaphor. Certainly humans would be a more accurate term. But it's not just humans, it's how we interact with all animals, all trees, all plants, everything on the earth, part of the biosphere, beyond the biosphere. What we can do, as that can sound overwhelming, is what can we do right now? So starting with ourselves, transforming ourselves, and sharing that energy and information as we deem appropriate and are ready to. That's where the moon comes in. These are the dynamics of holding. So when we embody something long enough, it becomes sustainable. Habits can be broken. Most habits can be broken in 7 days. That's a quarter of a moon cycle. Moon rules those processes and those cycles of holding. When I spoke of cellular memory, that's part of the moon. So we can, keep it up for at least 7 days. Really, the whole moon cycle of 28 odd days is the greater process of total clearing, or total starting a totally new dynamic that will sustain itself. But the 7 days is key to kicking off that process. Okay, so this is the most important thing that's going on right now. On a longer term level, as I was mentioning, we're in the cusp of the age of Aquarius, which is the great quickening, which is the reunification, where people awaken to the inseparable unity of not just people, but the everything on the earth and beyond the earth, the entire universe, that the energy is everywhere and it's all inclusive, and we are it. And to recognize that everything we do doesn't just affect us or others, but how it affects others affects us too. So recognizing that what really serves us is to serve everyone else as much as possible. And I don't mean that in a slaving way. I mean, it's a good example is one of our best services is to do what we really love and what we're really passionate about. It's sustainable. We're going to do a great job of it. We won't call it work. It's what we are. It's where we really vibrate on a positive level. So that serves everybody. Now, we have to be careful with side effects or things that are harmful that we don't realize are harmful. Just about anything anybody does or anything that happens can have side effects that are less beneficial. And sometimes we have to accept those side effects. They're just part of life. And sometimes we need to recognize that, hey, avoid making those side effects any worse. Now this really nails the next part I was going to talk about. Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto in Capricorn is one of the clearest delineations of the entrance into the age of Aquarius that we're at right now. The exact center of the cusp was the end of 2012. As we all heard a lot about, people expected some huge event, and that huge event was energetic. The physical world moves in time-space. So we see the ripening of these instantaneous energetic switches. We see them occur or ripen like a flower, like a body, like a growing organism over time-space. And accordingly, free will is deeply involved. So the changes that are happening are far deeper than we might experience or think. So if we expected a massive, obvious physical world change on that at that time, that was really presumptuous. In fact, extremely naive. On an energetic level, of course we had a massive paradigm shift. So we need to look at the energy more than the events. Astrology was discovered, etc., and defined and affirmed and improved in accuracy by seeing the energetic effects on the physical world. That's what we might call our proof. So, but we can't base everything on the physical world. The physical world is a skin surface of multiple octaves of frequencies that are way beyond the third dimension or the physical world. So we see these energetic dynamics occur in the physical world. and they are mirrors and examples and parables. To me, it's like by analogy or example, it's like a dream. You have a dream. These are symbols. This is information, finding symbols to express that information through. If we take it too literally, we can miss the greater picture of what it actually means, or what's useful and applicable and what it's really about. Let's put it that way. With Pluto and Capricorn, we have the planet of transformation and upheaval and purification, ruled by Scorpio. In the sign of Capricorn, which rules greater structures, long-term structures, societal structures, personal structures, are bigger structures. Systems, large systems. So Pluto in Capricorn is about purification of greater systems, is about taking the greater power and applying it more appropriately, which means that sometimes we will find things that could be done a lot better. And other things, we're doing great, it's fine. Most things are some point in between. We just need to renovate, we need to tweak it, we need to adjust. And that's usually what we can do in each moment. We can adjust, very simply. And the cumulative effect of everybody adjusting consistently is where we will see paradigm shifts for the better. Pluto is right in the middle of Capricorn now. So it's halfway through this process, just over halfway. The first half is where we really see what needs to change, and the second half is where we really see it changing. So we will certainly see massive changes going on. And the other major sign of the cusp of the age of Aquarius is the other outer planets, Uranus and Neptune. Uranus ruled by Aquarius, entered Aries right when the Fukushima event happened, almost to the day, pretty much to the day. It's a fairly slow-moving planet, and the processes are fairly slow, but it's pretty much right to the day. Uranus ruling uranium, radioactivity, high-frequency energy. Going from Pisces, the ocean, to Aries, catalyzation and fire. We had a fire in a nuclear reactor due to a tsunami of water, ocean. Couldn't be more descriptive. Now, Uranus, or uranium, in its core elemental form, is an essential growth factor. It's essential. It's essential to growth and movement. In a nuclear reactor, we have other things added. We can have some not so healthy expressions of the same thing. Just like a human, they can do wonderful things or they can do terrible things. And usually it's somewhere in between, hopefully leaning to the positive. And that's always a good check-in. Am I leaning to the positive more than the negative on anything? Because that will be the dominant effect. Just notice too, Uranus is 26 degrees, 26 minutes. Isn't that amazing? We're doing this right when Uranus hits 26. 26 is an extremely important number. Numbers are just qualities of frequencies of vibration. This is a core frequency of vibration. 13 times 2, 26. 26 times 2, 52. These are core, root, fundamental vibratory geometries, which is about harmonizing through growth, through transcendence, transcending the outmoded and integrating things that are more appropriate. So we also have Neptune in Pisces. Neptune is ruled by Pisces. Neptune being in its own sign at the end of the age of Pisces. Neptune being in Pisces, its own sign, at the end of the age of Pisces. It is the final purification and the culmination of the Piscean age, great waters of clearing. Aquarius is about starting something new from the clearing. We're in the cusp, which is where the clearing is happening as the changes are happening. It's both. We have a foot in both worlds. We're still letting go. We're still awakening. We're definitely applying more appropriate things. By the way, the Age of Aquarius cusp started right when the Industrial Revolution happened, basically, where we started coming up with paradigm shifts of technological breakthroughs, which, when it first started, were very simple things. But it has advanced at an absolutely phenomenal rate, which, again, that's the physical world showing that we're in the cusp of the Great Quickening. Paradigm shifts, quantum leaps, extremely high rate growth. The frequency is higher, the energy is stronger, things move more easily. So we want to move things more easily in beneficial ways, obviously. Things can fall apart more easily, better things can come in more easily. Usually we have breakdowns for breakthroughs. It's very common in nature. Something will only break down if there is something better, and it's usually the vibration of something better that breaks down the outmoded thing. Pluto and Capricorn, again, better structures, better ideas, better plans, better ways of doing things, and the outmoded will fall away. As Buckminster Fuller put it, never fight a system, simply create a better system, and the outmoded system will fall away. So focusing on better ways of doing things rather than being in arguments. The challenge is when you bring in new things, sometimes people will argue. They might have some really good points. It's very important to, rather than to argue, to look at all the things that we need to consider. We need to transition gently enough that we don't cause more problems in our transition, for example. So sometimes things can move more slowly than we think, or than we think they are, or that they should. More common. It should have changed. Everything should have changed on the 21st of December 2012. I thought this was all going to happen in one day. Yeah, right? It's like, energy did. Energy sure did. I saw a flash of white light that went a couple of minutes. Can't remember now exactly, it was 5 years ago. But what an intense blast of pure white light energy. I was like, there you go. Right through the planet, through all the whole solar system, is absolutely phenomenal. Now we see these transformations from that energy occur in space-time. The universe, let's say, is intelligent enough, let's say, to move things at a rate they can handle. Sometimes we might feel like we're being pushed too fast or that we're going too slow. That's very subjective interpretation usually. It's also very common that we are moving too slow. We could move a lot faster. Nature's way ahead of us. People can be stubborn, or they don't understand, or they're clinging to old systems. So in the bigger picture, though, we will see that the collective is moving as one. While some people might be holding back to the outmoded things, other people are full on moving into the more appropriate things, and both will counterbalance each other and in the universal principle of expansion and contraction, they will basically create a dynamic of appropriate timing. So we need to neither procrastinate nor rush in a panic, but to rather synchronize with these natural cycles. And this is one of the reasons why astroclimatology is so important, because it shows us the natural timing. So we're not going too fast or too slow. And again, according to how well we interpret it or can apply it in the physical world in our conditions. So transformations of collective structures, how we share resources, Pluto and Capricorn, how we share resources, how we structure personally and societally and globally. So this is, again, very evident globally. We also have Saturn aligned with the center of our galaxy. It's just over 3 degrees from exactly aligned. The center of our galaxy is the heart of our galaxy. It is the most essential, just like the heart of the body. The blood flow is essential. The heart is essential. Not that anything isn't. But the heart is pumping the blood through the whole body. It's the center of our spirit. It's where our spirit is centered and emanating as a body. And it's our center of super consciousness. It's our spirit. Our spirit is unlimited and eternal. And it's expressing through a limited, finite physical body. So ultimately, the more we tune into that higher consciousness, that is, again, equated with not only the sun, which is the center of our solar system, but the center of our galaxy. So these are 3 different forms of heart centers. The heart center in our body, 4 centers now. The center of the Earth, obviously an important one. The center of the solar system, the sun, the center of our galaxy, and of course the ultimate, the great central sun of all it is. And there are multiple more, without needing to label all of them. These are the most important ones to look at right now, or in our solar system, in our immediate vibrational environment. So the Saturn being aligned with the center of the galaxy. Now, Saturn is ruled by Capricorn, where Pluto is. Greater structures. Time processes, linear space-time processes. The natural order of beneficial unfolding. Let's put it that way. So, timing and appropriate application. Ideal, beneficial applications. That galactic pulse being disseminated, being distributed, Capricorn, Pluto, again, in appropriate ways. At the, not too much, not too little, not too fast, not too slow. It's a great quickening, paradigm shifts. We need to be, the universe is being as gentle as possible with our organic forms and structures and physical world dynamics as possible, with such an incredibly powerfully transforming energy. So things are being transformed at the core root outward. So we have vibrational changes immediately, accordingly, and we have physical world expression changes in appropriate timing and processes, natural order. So structuring how we utilize greater energy, the center of the galaxy, Saturn aligned with the center of the galaxy. Appropriate distribution. Another great Buckminster Fuller quote. There is no problem with abundance. The problem is distribution. It's It's how we distribute. It's how we organize. It's basically organization is a really good word. When we recognize that each of us benefits the most by the whole being in as much harmony as possible, then we eliminate poverty. We eliminate imbalance, gross level imbalances. And it doesn't mean that everything is 50-50. That's a gross level example of balance. Harmonic ratios is where no one has too little and no one has way too much. And the only reason it'd be too much is that other people have too little. Really, we're looking at a universe of unlimited potential. So, distribution. So all these things are coming up on really huge levels. We also have the north and the south node of the moon in the Leo-Aquarius axis now. It takes 2.5 years to go through each sign. The north node in Leo, I'm just looking at the chart by the way, it's probably obvious by now, you never know. North node is the culmination of energies of all the dynamics from the standpoint of the earth. The culmination of where the river is flowing. You take all of these influences and they culminate as one major flow. That would be the galactic pulse, by the way. And the north node, the direction that the river is flowing, is in Leo. The energy is coming from the exact opposite side, Aquarius. So we're taking the diversity and all the different expressions and the wholeness of diversity and directing it into a powerful, redirecting it into a powerful, almost like a laser beam, Leo, which rules the sun. Laser beam of superpower. And it's from taking all of the parts and recognizing they're not a part, they're not apart. It's not one word, apart. There are many different forms and expressions that are not separate. They're not apart. They are all a part. So, the parts of the whole, which are inseparable. Tricky with the words there. So basically it's about taking the whole spectrum of all our, for example, let's give an example in this case. Look at all the different talents in the world, all the different services in the world, all the different personality types in the world. Or look at all the different things in an eco-force. It's all essential. Some of them don't seem to agree or get along too well, but it's all essential, and this is what you get when you do everything. you get contrasts, you get challenges. Of course we do. It is always an equal opposite. So, recognize again, this is why we need to lean toward the beneficial all the time, and not expect everything to go perfectly all the time. Or not to think, oh, life is horrible and suffering, nor to think that it's always nice and easy. Right? Rather, the harmonic balance of doing the best we can and accepting the knowledge and the challenges that we go through. When we're doing the best we can, not only are we going to have the best outcomes that we could have, but we also have little to no reason for regret. And that's again leaning on the ideal, but certainly let's aim for the ideal. The most possible potential we can be applying is shooting for the ideal. Expecting the ideal is a setup for letdown. So, last thing we want to do is lose hope, etc. So, yeah, these are some of the more core longer-term dynamics that I've been talking about here. And I'm going more in depth with this because the longer term, since it's the first video, and ultimately these things are so triggered by this new moon, it's absolutely phenomenal. The reason being that the new moon was only 4 minutes of arc degrees from exactly opposite to the planet Uranus. We also at this time have Mars right at the end of Virgo and 10 degrees from Venus in Libra. Venus is ruled by Libra and Taurus. Mars is ruled by Aries, where Uranus is. Mars in Virgo is a healing catalyst. It motivates us to heal things, basically usually by triggering awareness of a problem. That is, if there is a problem, it'll come up. And the healthy side of Virgo will then do something beneficial with it. When it goes into Libra, that is where we reflect our new order. So we make it more sustainable. It's not just a new thing we're trying. Virgo also rules the healing crisis. Sometimes we start doing something better, and the clearing process, we might feel more sick. That's just, we're in the clearing process. It's like trying to clear your liver too fast could be actually lethal. We have to do that in a safe, appropriate process and rate. Same thing. So the Virgo entering Libra, this is where we go from the healing crisis. We have the awakening, we have the application, we have the process, we have the healing crisis, and then Libra is more about the where we start to see it reflect. We do start feeling better. More dominantly, we're feeling better. Also, we have Venus in its own sign of Libra, as I mentioned. It's also ruled by Taurus. The Venus in Libra is about recognizing that natural dynamics are beautiful. Sacred geometry is natural dynamics. It's beautiful. And nature is constantly creating more beautiful things. And again, you always have to, it's very important to recognize that not only is beauty in the eye of the beholder, but also not seeing beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's in the interpretation and perception. But natural dynamics are always about thriving, growing, expanding, and it is beautiful. When something is in harmony, we find it beautiful. Why? Because it's in harmony. The spirit knows that's in harmony. It's beautiful. And we get a beautiful object or a beautiful person. Maybe they're not very beautiful spiritually. So then we say, well, that's funny. If it's a really beautiful person, why aren't they reflecting that on the inside? Well, sometimes, a lot of problems can come, let's just say, downsides. So, for instance, a beautiful flower. People want to pick the beautiful flower. They want to take it home. Try not to pick too many flowers or they won't be in. Try not to squeeze it and strangle it, right? So, it's appropriate interaction with beautiful things. What really matters here the most is tuning into nature being about beauty, about beautifying, it's more accurate, making it more beautiful over time, and reharmonizing when disharmony happens. So yeah, we're looking at a very big process here of tuning into what is more serving personally and collectively and making the adjustments that are required. With Pluto in Capricorn just having passed halfway through Capricorn, again going from pointing out, discovering what's not working, pointing out some better things, to actually leaning on the side of applying better things. The why and the do. So, really turning into what people may say, oh, that's a utopian vision. Not what I'm saying, but something, right? Harmony. We can have harmony in the world. Oh, that's a utopian vision. No. It's a transformation. It's a natural state of being. Harmony is a natural state of being. Like an ego first. It's in harmony. There isn't a whole bunch of free will or poor conditioning or belief systems or negative imbalances from free will going on. It's working together, intuitive. When people work together more intuitively, they're not so much in their mind or what they're programmed to believe or how they're programmed to act or what they believe, etc. The focuses that are having the momentum to be somewhat stable. Those dysfunctional things are becoming less and less stable. The high frequency harmonizing energies from the galactic center coming through directly through Saturn, because Saturn's right between the solar system and the Earth and the center of our galaxy, ultimately is really focusing that energy. So we have this huge purification of Pluto and Saturn, Sun and Capricorn, and we have this huge focusing of powerful healing energy coming from the center of the galaxy focused through Saturn. So it's about recognizing what's dysfunctional and outmoded, what works better, and finding ways to transform, to disintegrate the outmoded, the dysfunctional, and to integrate what is more serving. Okay, so let's look at what's going on this week. We have Mars entering Libra on Sunday the 22nd of October 2017. So it's mentioning Mars going into Libra, Sun entering Scorpio on the same day, emphasizing those power. The emphasis is more on the power of transformation. Again, things come up to come out. Spiritual bleach, good, let's get it out. Not resisting things that are uncomfortable, but working with them and accepting them. We can change something by accepting it and working with it. We can hamper something by not accepting it and not working with it. Grow with the flow. Mercury is trining Neptune exactly on Monday the 24th. This helps us to really be more intuitive and more accurate in our intuitive faculties and interpretations. It's more like we have more powerful intuition and ability to interpret it more accurately. Very important to go beyond the mind, beyond thinking, beyond subjective opinions as much as possible in order to interpret that information as accurately as possible. So intuition building and building stronger and stronger during the week. Then we have the Sun aligning with Jupiter on Thursday the 26th, and the Moon will be aligning with Pluto and Capricorn at the same time and squaring Uranus, all on the same day. So again, this Sun-Jupiter conjunction in Scorpio will really enhance the positive aspects of transformation. Again, taking a really positive attitude. Rather than saying, oh, there's a problem, let's say, oh, there's an ability to fix it. When we become aware of something, we can fix it. If we're not aware of something, good luck with that one. Attitude. How much does attitude affect outcomes and experience? Probably almost unlimited. On the subjective levels, pretty much unlimited. Then we have Venus squaring Pluto on Friday the 27th. right when Mercury sextiles Pluto. So this really helps us to let go of holding to things that are making it harder to change. So we have more awareness of what to change, why to change it, and how to why to change it. And then we have more of the ability to let go of attachments to things that are inhibiting changing for the better. And then we're moving into, after that, the next week will be Halloween on the 31st, Tuesday. The 31st is Halloween, where the veils are the thinnest. And that is very literal. We have a very high frequency vibration where we can see or access, and the five senses are more able to perceive higher frequencies. Hence the veils are thinner. And seeing into higher frequencies is where we will accordingly perceive things that are less physical, not only vibrational causalities of things, but non-physical beings, etc. Hence the whole thing with ghosts and all of this, which are just disembodied spirits, ultimately, as an overview, without doing an entire workshop on it. So yeah, this is also classically very informative and affirmative and informative of the whole dynamic we've been speaking of seeing into deeper levels in order to move into deeper levels. So whatever comes up for you personally or perhaps collectively. Sometimes what comes up collectively is something that we can helps us to look at personally. Maybe we're not going to admit it so easily. What really matters is that we look into it at all. And sometimes we'll suggest something to somebody and they don't want to admit that it's, there's something they could improve. But they certainly will look at it in their own way, in silence alone, according to how accurate it is. Because quite often it's just, I like to say, just saying. Just saying. Yeah, I'm not expecting you to do something, or I'm not expecting something. I'm just saying. I'm sharing. I like to say it's just and sane for just saying. It'd be ridiculous not to say certain things. Sometimes it's non-comfortable. Sometimes people infer that we are demanding something from them. We're simply just sharing something. Kind of like being a teacher and expecting everyone to pass the test with flying colors. It'd be ridiculous. It'd be a ridiculous expectation, especially if you took it personally. Whoa. Just teach as good as you can. Leave it up to people to apply it. If you can prove how you're teaching, great, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Nature, however, over time, certainly is calling the shots. So the river leads to the ocean. No matter what we do, we're going to get there. We can go a lot more smoothly or not so smoothly at any point between, and that again is so largely why I've been volunteering to do these Astro-Climate Reports for 17 years, weekly, on the radio, live on the radio, and now on YouTube. Because it's so empowering, and it's so, it's not mainstream information. It's become way more mainstream ever since Uranus went into Aquarius, Uranus ruled by Aquarius, and Aquarius ruled astrology. All these things became infinitely more common knowledge, but since it wasn't, and still to the degrees that it isn't coming on, that's why I was so called to volunteer to share as much as I can. Yeah, we're in this together because we are this together. So, doing my part as much as I can. We're at the end of the episode. If you'd like to get a personal life flow path reading, you can contact me. This is where I'll get the contact info. It's where we look at our own personal dynamics on multiple levels. Similar to the show, we looked at Astro-Climate on a collective level. We'll look at each of those things we looked at today on personal level. Our own personal galactic cosmology, the 9-dimensional synchronometry, the beginning of the show. Then we'll look at our own personal astrology, which shows us the detailed examples, etc. And where we're at now in these greater processes, what the collective dynamics are. So what our personal present stances, what our collective present stances, which are inherent in each other, always unique for each person. Collective environment, personal dynamics, unique collective environment. And then we look at longer term things. So we can look at, ultimately, look at as much as I can. But it's always very important to focus on what is the major change in your life, or what's the most important to you. So we can focus largely on that. We'll look at the big picture as much as we can, and then focus on present or long-term dynamics that are going on in the process of happening. So ultimately, we understand ourselves so much more on such higher levels, beyond the mind, beyond the condition, beyond the physical world conditions, in order to align our physical world conditions, our mind, our modalities, etc., with these greater dynamics, ultimately, again, the ocean, that the rivers lead to. So we can sail better, we can navigate better on the ocean. And there's no realm that we can't do this on. We can also can look at it on a very personal level, which is very important. We could specify them and look at relationships. We can look at business. Usually we end up doing other things, but we can specify certain focuses according to certain conditions. Perhaps somebody's in a major relationship change, perhaps they're in a major career change, or considering one, or some form of crossroads or major life change or transition, perhaps death in the family, etc., etc. So what's most dominantly important right now? So we'll look at the big picture and figure out why and how these things that happen and what's happening now fits into the big picture, so that we can take the wisest path. So thanks for listening. You can contact me at universaltraveler11 at gmail.com. universaltraveler11 at gmail.com. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Then you'll get updates when posts come up. And you can hear it while it's still fresh. You have to keep checking in and anything like that. You'll be reminded to select alerts by email. You'll be alerted by email when you post come up. This is a very long I generally plan to do really long ones very often, just when things are really important and there's a lot to talk about. But ideally, a lot of times things are very short. It's just something that's happening right now. Today I wanted to look really deep into the big picture, largely because the big picture is so emphasized right now. It's the perfect time to do that. Other times, it's not that involved. Especially once we looked at the really big picture, like the cusp of the Aquarius, unifying our diversities into harmony. What a big picture summary. whatever you can. It's obvious all over the place. The sort of the challenges, sort of the resistances, but the collective awakening to move into unity is just so obvious. It's ridiculous. Say it's ridiculous not to know this. Anyway, so you can contact me at universaltraveler at universaltraveler11@gmail.com or universaltraveler@cjly.net. That one's still active. That was my radio show email. Everyone is fine. They're both active. Thanks for listening. In peace prevail on earth. Yes, when we allow it. Namaste in the Kesh. Time unto yourself. Let's work together as well as we can.